So if we were saying before that if we wanted to write, we said before that we have problems where we want to write in words, such as minus a negative 3. We would say this is the opposite of a negative 3. Well, the opposite, if this is negative 3, here's 0, here's negative 3. The opposite of negative 3 is a positive 3, right? So we could say that if we wanted to simplify minus a negative 3, basically we could say, we could use the property of subtraction by saying, okay, this is the same thing as saying minus a negative 3. Make the minus sign a plus, change the sign of the next term, and what we have here is 3. And so the reason why it becomes a positive is because we're looking at the opposite. This is the opposite. This minus sign is the opposite, makes this the opposite of a negative 3. Okay? So if we wanted to look at the opposite of 2, that would be what? Negative 2, right. Here's 2. The opposite of 2 is negative 2. So that's why if we had, let's say, 5 minus 5, and the opposite, this minus sign is opposite 2, we could also look at this as 5 plus a negative 2. Okay, change the minus sign to a plus, make the sign in the change the sign in the second term. Alright, so if we had, let's say we had something like 3 minus a negative 1. Okay? So in reality, when we simplify these negatives, what do we get here? Yeah. Change the minus sign to a plus, change the sign in the second term. And now what we have here is 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay? So we're getting a little ahead, but it goes along with what we're talking about as far as opposites and simplifying. Alright? So sometimes people can see, they go ahead and they get, okay, yeah, minus a negative opposite gives me a plus. But as soon as they put a number in front of it, those two negatives, all of a sudden, they have a problem. Okay, it's the same. The process is the same. Okay, any questions with that? So if we had if we wanted to simplify a minus sign here, and we've got just 3.
Negative 3.
Yep, right. That's just negative 3. Okay? So whether it's positive or negative, we're looking at this as the opposite of 3. Okay? Alright, any questions with those? Alright, and problems 80 through 89. We want to evaluate absolute values. So if we have the absolute value of a number, and we'll call this A. What we're saying here on the number line here's 0, here's A. What we're saying here is A units from 0. So if we wanted the absolute value of negative A, well, that's still A units from 0. So that's why the absolute value of a negative number inside the absolute value sign is just, in this case, what we're saying here is, again, A units from 0. So let's put some numbers to that. Let's say that we want to look at the absolute value of a negative 2. Okay? Well, here's negative 2. Here's 0. We can say how many units is negative 2 from 0?
2.
2 units, right. So therefore, the absolute value of negative 2, and I exaggerate the absolute value sign so it doesn't look like, 121 or 1 minus 21 is, so this means 2 units from 0. Okay? So now if we have a negative, and we have, let's say, negative absolute value of 10. Well, we're saying that this is 10 units from 0, right? 10 units from 0. But we're also saying the opposite. Of 10. So we're saying 10 units from 0, but now we're putting the opposite to that, and so that makes it negative 10. So if the negative is inside the absolute value, we're looking at, okay, we take the positive number of that. So if it's 10 inside, if it's already positive, then it stays positive. But if there's a negative outside, then we go ahead and place that negative in front of it. Okay? So here we have the absolute value